And keeping the spine nice and long. And the face straight forward. The eyes softly closed. Allow energy to both root you down and rise you up in the same moment, so that you feel stable, strong, and grounded, but you also feel expansive, open, and free. And just take a moment to call to your mind the face of someone who you love, and someone who you love so deeply that just the thought of them makes you smile. And recognize that they have experienced both happiness and sadness in this life. Allow your heart to be grateful for their happiness. Allow your heart to have compassion for their sadness. And send them an affirmation. May you be protected. May you be healthy. May you be happy. Now call to mind someone who you're friendly with. You don't have to know them intimately, but just someone who you get along with. And see their smiling face. Allow yourself to understand that they have experienced both happiness and sadness in this life, both joy and suffering. Be grateful for their happiness and have compassion for their suffering. And send them the mantra, the affirmation, may you be protected, may you be healthy, may you be happy. Now call to mind the face of someone who you've seen but don't really know. Maybe a clerk in the store or the person who pumps gas into your car. And see their face and recognize that they have experienced happiness and sadness. Allow yourself to be grateful for their happiness and compassionate for their sadness. And send them the affirmation. May you be protected. May you be healthy. May you be happy. Now call to mind someone who you are angry at, who you feel has betrayed you in some way. See their face. Allow yourself to acknowledge that they have experienced happiness and sadness in this life. And send them the intention, the affirmation, may you be protected. May you be healthy. May you be happy. And bring to your mind's awareness your own face as if you were looking into a mirror. And seeing your own face, acknowledge that you too have had happiness and sadness in this life. And send yourself the affirmation. May I be protected. May I be healthy. May I be happy. And now see all these people together, standing side by side, and you're right in the middle. And there is a light shining from the heart of each person. And that light grows brighter and brighter with each breath. And the brighter the light grows, the more difficult it is to tell the difference from one person to the next. Eventually, all that's left are outlines and shadows. And then all are brought into the light. And send everyone the affirmation. May we all be protected. May we all be healthy. May we all be happy. Placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. And together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. And bowing the head toward the heart, acknowledging all. And draw the face to center, release the hands, flutter the eyes open. And so today's conversation is about forgiveness. And for those who were in class this morning, we talked about many facets of forgiveness. We talked about the fact that forgiveness is not a favor. Forgiveness is not permission to continue in the same type of behavior. Permission is not acquiescence, and forgiveness is not acquiescence. Forgiveness is something that is difficult to describe, but necessary if we would like for our spiritual hearts to open and flourish. Forgiveness isn't letting anybody off the hook. Forgiveness is acknowledging that we're all human and that every single one of us have made mistakes. Every single one of us have made intentional mistakes. Every single one of us have committed harm in some way, shape, or form. Forgiveness is a way of acknowledging that. And it's a way of allowing your own heart to open to the possibility that maybe this person, including yourself, needs to go through this in order to recognize a purer way of being, the truth of their own self. Maybe they're just fearful. Maybe they think they lack something. Maybe they're lashing out because they don't feel worthwhile. We don't know why people do things. We do, on some occasions, know why we do things. And our reasons, we can compassionately equate to their reasons. Because while we may be different on many levels, we are also similar and the same on many levels. We're all living a life in this world today, and it is a life that is not easy. It is a life that is full of relationships. Relationships with everything, from other people, to the planet, to the government, to our own bodies, our own minds. So many relationships. And if we do nothing but become angry at those relationships, and we just continue to constrict, then we will never find a space within ourselves for love, compassion, equanimity, faith, God, Goddess. You know, a washcloth that's wringing out can't soak up water. It'll only ever wring it out. If you want the washcloth to soak up water, you got to give it a little bit of space. You got to unwind it a little bit. Forgiveness is that unwinding. Forgiveness is about the other person to some degree, but it's also primarily about you. It's about the one who is forgiving. Because we can't control what another person does with any gift. We can only control what we feel and how we react and respond to things in this life. And when we forgive another person, we're taking a burden off of our shoulders and off of our heart. And then our heart has a little more space, and our shoulders are a little more relaxed. And we can look and maybe see a little more potential, a little more possibility. And after a while, maybe not the first couple of times it's certainly resistance, but after a while we start to realize that, forgiveness or letting go of the attachment to the vengeance or the revenge or the anger, letting go of that actually opens us up to a far more creative life, a far more creative way of living and expressing our goodness. But if we fail to forgive others and ourselves, then what we're going to see is a dismal world, a dismal community, dismal people, and no hope. So the metta meditation that we did at the beginning of the session is a very important tool in forgiveness, because it allows us to see through a very beautiful Buddhist psychology, and yoga shares that psychology also, that all beings are searching the same thing. All people are looking to be safe. Would you like to be unsafe, Kathy? Would you like to be unsafe? No. She's like, no, wait, no. Allison, would you like to be unsafe?
I would not like to be unsafe.
Rich, would you like to be unsafe?
No.
No. So would you agree that we all just want to be safe? And would you like to be healthy? Right? Like, nobody really wants to be sick. Even an individual who is causing their own illness doesn't really want the illness. What they want to feel is uplifted, and the illness is a reflection of not feeling uplifted on some levels. It's also a lot of other things, but I've never met a person who said, yeah, I like being sick. I really enjoy it. It's the height of my day. People want to be healthy across the board. People also want to be happy. They want to experience a sense of lightness, a simple joy. It's not satisfaction. It's not like I can make you happy. Here, take this money. Here, take this car. Here, take these things. That's not the kind of happiness that the metta meditation is talking about. It's a simplicity. It's a simple joy of appreciation and gratitude that when we watch the sunrise, it just fills us up. And when we watch the moon rise, it fills us up. And when we see a person smile or we hear a child laugh, we're filled with this simple joy. It's a constant little reminder of the absolute bliss of life. It's not absent suffering. Suffering happens absolutely across the board, and we can't stop that as long as we're in this physical body. But joy happens too. And so if you ask people across the board, what they'll say is, I want to be happy. So when we do this metta meditation and we say, may we be protected or safe, may we be healthy, may we be happy, what we're acknowledging is that this is what everyone across the board is looking for, no matter what their actions indicate otherwise. This is what people are looking for. But the level of ignorance, the level of not seeing the truth of their own actions leads them further away oftentimes. And so we become caught up in grasping at many things because we think that if I could only have that, it'll make me happy. If I could only have that, it'll make me safe. If I could only have that, it'll make me healthy. The reality is those three things come from within the self. And there has to be space within the self in order for those three things to flourish. A sense of safety, which includes a sense of faithfulness. A sense of health, which includes a sense of balance and wellness. A sense of simple okayness. And happiness, which includes joy and appreciation and gratitude. So if we're living life like a cloth being wrung, so tight and twisted, there's no space for those things to be nourished and to cultivate. There's only space for nothing. And I don't mean the good nothing. I mean the other nothing. Just more of the same. Does that make sense? Yeah? So ask yourself in this moment, where in life are you that washcloth being wrung? Where in life are you not breathing? Where in life are you not being? Forgiveness is about letting go. It's not about saying, you know what, it's okay that you did that. No worries, I'll get over it. That's not forgiveness. That's passiveness. Forgiveness is understanding. Well, it's not. I'm going to use a different word because you don't need to understand in order to forgive. Forgiveness is allowing us all to be human, not taking ownership over another person's actions, and recognizing on some level that it's either part of their spiritual path, it's part of something they need to learn in this life, it's part of their fear, it's a result of how they feel about themselves. And you don't have to own that. You don't have to carry that. It does not belong to you. More than it does not belong to you, when we look at a child crying, the typical reaction is to go and hug the child because we don't want children to cry. We want them to be happy. So we see a person suffering. You don't have to go give them a hug, but in your heart, you want them to be happy, to be healthy, and to be safe. Because when they're happy, healthy, and safe, they're not harmful. But when they are unhappy, unsafe, and unhealthy, all three of those, the tendency of their harm rises, and you are not the only one who will receive that. Everyone in their circle will. So we could look at forgiveness as a method to reducing harm. You don't have to understand why. We always want to know why. Why? Why did you do that? Why did you say that? Why did you go there? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Stop asking why. The why is not going to fix the situation. If an action needs forgiveness, it's an action in the past, and the past is already done, and you can't go back and change it. So stop asking why. You will never receive a satisfying answer. You can just know in your heart that a person who is feeling safe, happy, and healthy would not do anything to harm another person. Therefore, that individual is lacking one of those three things. And it's causing them to become violent. And violence can be anything from lying, stealing, cheating, to more grand scale violence, like war, theft, like on the big scale, you know. Some people say that this type of a perspective is trying to see the world through rose-colored glasses, and I disagree. I don't think it's rose-colored glasses. I think it's acknowledging that humans have potential in two directions. They have the potential to suffer, and they have the potential to heal. And we can choose the suffering. It's fine. That's what a person wants. Let them choose it. It's no judgment there, because eventually they will heal. And a person can choose healing, but they are still going to suffer. But those are the two universals in humanity, is that we all suffer and we all heal. And we all choose one over the other. Every single one of us. What you choose is up to you. Sometimes people come to the ashram and they say, oh, this was so nice, time to go back to the real world. I say, no. It's time to go to the world that you create for yourself. It's not the real world. It's not any more real than it is here. It's not any less real than it is here. It's what you make of it. So if you see the ashram as a sanctuary and you come here seeking sanctuary, you'll find sanctuary because that's what you're seeking. If you come here seeking sanctuary and you don't find sanctuary, then it's because you came here seeking sanctuary, but you had a doubt in your mind and you were looking for resistance. If you go out into the world and you're seeking a violent world, you will find a violent world. But if you go out into the world and you're seeking goodness and you're seeking beauty, you'll see that too. It doesn't mean that the harmful things aren't going to happen, because we're talking about you here. We're talking about you, me, not anyone else. Because you can't control what person A does to person B. You can only control what you see, how you feel, how you react, how you respond. Sometimes they say yoga is a very selfish practice. There was an article I've shared with some of you in the past that the title of it was Yoga, a Self-Centered Path, or Selfish Self-Centered Path. And when I read the headline initially, the hair on the back of my neck went up. I was like, what's this author talking about? And then I started reading it. And the headline was correct, but not for the reasons that they were like just trying to get people to read, like, oh, those yogis, they're also selfish, And he was saying it has to be a self-centered path. This practice, your spirituality, whatever you call that, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, yoga, whatever you call your spirituality, it has to be self-centered, at least at first, because you need to understand yourself. You need to understand who you think you are and what habitual behaviors you have put in place in order to uphold that understanding. How you use your anger, how you use your grief, how you use your suffering, how you use your healing, how you use your wisdom, your knowledge, your understanding, your ignorance, how you use these things in order to prop up the person you think you are. And then through the practice, we become deconstructed. We tear away those things. We don't tear them away, really. They fall away. It's kind of like, I don't really want to be angry anymore. I remember the first time I said that to myself and meant it, right? Because we all say it. But saying it and meaning it are two different things. And I just remember that in that moment, and I think I was like 36 years old. A lot of pivotal things happened around my 36th year. I had points in my life, 8 years old, 12 years old, 24 years old, 36 years old. Those were kind of prime years. And on my 36th year, it was after a meditation or something, I just came out of the meditation and said, I don't want to be angry anymore. Anger is such BS. It's like, if I have to be angry, if it's got a good purpose to it, then yes. But this other stuff I'm carrying around with me, I'm tired of it. It's not serving me. And that was the beginning of another phase of understanding about putting things away that no longer serve. But in order to do so, I had to be able to forgive people. And I had to be able to forgive myself for taking on the burden of something that didn't belong to me. Some of it belonged to me, but not all of it. So this path, we come onto this path in order to come to know ourselves. That has to be a self-centered journey. And then as we come to know ourselves and we begin to deconstruct the harmful tendencies and re-embellish the parts of ourselves that are based in peace and love and light, then we walk out into the world a less harmful person. Less harmful. Not completely unharmful, but less harmful. And less and less and less harmful. And less and less and less harmful. And in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Buddha's teachings, it says, and I'm going to paraphrase because it says this in many teachings, for the one who has cultivated absolute peace in their heart, no person and no animal that is not human, humans are animals too, no being is afraid of them. No being is afraid of them. Animals will approach them. People will approach them. Fear and other animosities will be released in their presence. Because what all people are seeking is to be safe, to be healthy, and to be happy. And they recognize it when someone has been working on that and has achieved some level of it. So this is why yoga needs to be a self-centered practice at first, because the first thing that we're doing is addressing ourselves and where we have chosen to walk in one direction instead of another, increasing our own and other people's suffering. And then we don't walk out into the world all boisterous, like, look what I've done, you know. That's ego, inflated. We walk humbly, acknowledging that with every step we could harm something. With every action we could harm something. With every word we can harm something. With every well-meaning intention we can still do harm. And so we walk humbly, not being neurotic about it, but just looking and saying, do I really need this fur coat? What is it supporting? Do I really need this alcohol? How does it make me feel after I drink it? Do I really need to get involved in this argument? Because where would I take it? We can ask ourselves just gentle questions about what we really need and how what we perceive we need empowers us to either support a greater healing or support a greater suffering. And that's what it comes down to. But at the beginning of all of this, there's got to be some awareness of the necessity of forgiveness. And I'll be honest with you, I never liked that word. Matter of fact, I probably didn't use that word for maybe the first half of my life. I was like, forgiveness. But then somebody that I was speaking with, could have been Swamiji, I'm not sure, equated forgiveness to letting go. And I started contemplating and concentrating on that, trying to consider what forgiveness and letting go actually had to do with one another. And when I realized that forgiveness is actually saying, I don't really own this. It doesn't belong to me. And the person that it does belong to only tried to put it on my shoulders because they're suffering so greatly. And I don't want them to suffer. It's not my desire for them to suffer. It's my desire for them to heal so that they can walk through this world a healthier, less harmful person. And then maybe, and you could say this might be a little rose-colored glasses, but maybe someday, maybe all 7.5 billion people will walk a little less harmfully through the world. A little. But could you imagine what that would do? I'm not talking across the board 100% everybody. I'm saying, what if everybody, 1%? 1% less harmful. How would this world change by just 1%? There would be so much less violence in this world, so much less harm, so much less suffering. It doesn't require 100%. It requires a little bit in order for things to change for the positive. And it requires that we not hold grudges. I mean, we get hurt all the time. It's part of being human. What's healthier than holding a grudge would be accepting that a situation occurred, acknowledging the emotions that we're feeling about it, sitting with those emotions and thinking about what they have to teach us. And when we feel ready, not right away, because right away is not the healthy time to do it, because initially we have to work with whatever emotions we feel. But at some point, when we feel ready, holding the other person or people that we're angry at, holding them in a different light, a light of, am I ready to forgive you? Am I strong enough where I can say this and mean it? Where I can extend compassion, extend empathy, extend kindness by way of not holding on to this. And then letting go. And letting them go. We've talked in other circles, we've talked in other discussions about holding people hostage. And holding people hostage is like wringing out that washcloth and holding it there. There's no change happening here. No. It is not changing. It's going to stay in this form from now until whenever I say so. So then that person is stuck in that replay. It's like, when you're watching a program and you want to hear what they're saying, and you keep hitting rewind, rewind, rewind. And so the only light that you're seeing that person is in the rewinding light of that situation playing itself over and over and over and over again. There's a little bit of that that's healthy. And there's a lot of that that's not. A whole lot of that that's not. When you get stuck in that rewind mode, it's not healthy. There's no magic number about how many times you should rewind. As long as it takes you to do the work of forgiveness. But if you're not doing the work of forgiveness, then the rewinding is just feeding the ego and is feeding the propping up of the person that you think you are, not the person that you really are. Because the person, the being, the essence that you really are is beyond a grudge. It's beyond that. It's the essence of peace, the essence of love, the essence of unity. So forgiveness is a powerful word. And it allows us to release people from our grasp, to release them and to stop hitting the rewind. Forgiveness is like saying, I'm going to set you free of me. Because I don't have the skill right now to continue in this pattern. And I don't think my heart wants to. So I'm just going to set you free. And I'm not going to carry this any longer. So you don't have to fear me. I'm not going to hurt you. Because when somebody does something to harm you, the second thing they think afterward is they're going to retaliate. Now you've got a person who has some kind of a violent tendency fearing retaliation. I think in the old U.S., and it's still going on today, we used to call that like family duels, right? Who are they, Smith and Hatfield and McCoy. Yeah, exactly. Have they stopped yet? I don't even know. Like, did they kill each other off or something? Yeah. But right, how many relationships are like that? It's act, retaliate, 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 to the point where we don't even know what the original act was anymore. We just pull something out of a hat, and say, well, it was back when you did this. And they were like, yeah, but what about when you did this? But what about when you did this? And what you're both saying is, I want to go back into the past and rewrite it so that it was nicer, kinder, so that it was different. But the reality is, all you're doing is creating the same past. Unless you let that past go and forgive on whatever level is possible and move forward continually in a light of love and in a light of peace and in a light of compassion. And by moving forward with each footstep, contemplating these beautiful qualities, you're creating a new past. A past that is not full of what you've been arguing about and wishing was different. Now is when the past begins. It doesn't begin tomorrow, and it doesn't begin with someone telling you, I'm sorry. It's nice if they tell you they're sorry, but then you're just going to spend more time wondering if they mean it. So what's more important than someone saying, I'm sorry, is you acknowledging what your role in things are. And then perhaps apologizing to yourself for keeping yourself wound up like a washcloth instead of open like birds' wings when they're flying. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Forgiveness is thought to be a weakness by some people. And I would suggest that it's actually a courage. That forgiveness is not weakness at all. How can you forgive them? Because I'm going to be courageous enough to walk through my life without dragging that behind me. I don't need to rely on that in order to be the person that I'm meant to be. I can put that story away for a while. That takes courage. It takes courage to dissolve a little bit of who we think we are and dissolve a little bit of the stories that we surround ourselves with. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage to step into the unknown. And a life without those stories, a life without that burden of anger, a life without holding on to that, whatever that is for a person, is the unknown. That is the unknown. So by putting that down and stepping forward, you're stepping forward into the unknown. What is life without this? How will my reactions, responses, and relationships change if I no longer carry this? I wonder what will change. And you can try it sometime. Pick something small. Don't do the big thing first. Pick something small. Pick a person who, you were angry with and you don't even remember anymore why. And that you held a grudge against them and you stopped talking to them. And just reach out and say, hi. Or let the grudge go. Whatever it happens to be for you, because methodology is different for everybody. But if you wanted to try to reconnect with that person and see how you're juggling your emotions now, or just put the grudge down and do the metta meditation to them every morning. Every morning, let them be one of the faces that you see. And through the metta meditation, learn how to put it down. Put the grudge away. Let it dissolve into something else, into forgiveness. And then just notice how your life would be walking forward without kind of those deep thoughts that are hidden back in the mind saying, well, what about what John Smith did back in 1976? That would be a space opened up in your mind for something else. Yeah. Okay, so in Yoga Nidra, we open the mind for space. Yeah. And people will say, my mind won't stop thinking. Of course your mind won't stop thinking. It's supposed to think. That's what it's for. The mind is a mechanism of thinking, and it's going to do that. Meditation, concentration is not about stopping the mind from thinking. It's about honing the skills of how you think. And then as you hone the skills, then you naturally enter into a state of meditation, which is a state of great freedom. But even some part of the mind is present in meditation. It's not until you go into samadhi where the thoughts of the mind seem to dissolve because you are absorbed into something else. And spiritually speaking, what you're absorbed into is the essence of the divine. If we could all walk around the world like that, I wonder what it would be like.
Interesting.
Exactly. So funny. I was watching this show, and there was a couple, and they were going to this couples workshop that was kind of yoga / New Age-ish thing. And they had these people walking in a circle, and then all of a sudden the circle closed in and they were just walking among each other. And the whole idea of it was if you see someone that you want to hug, reach out and hug them. And I imagine it would kind of be like that. Like if everybody was walking around in samadhi, we'd just be like hugging each other all the time. We'd all be like Amma, right? Hugging each other all the time. Giving everybody hugs. All blissful, peaceful. Guaranteed nobody'd be carrying grudges, right? Nobody'd be judgmental. Nobody would be angry. Or maybe they would be angry, but they would know what to do with it. The Dalai Lama was asked at one point, he was asked, so you don't get angry, is that right? And he laughed. And he said, of course I get angry. His interpreter said. Yeah. Dalai Lama said, of course he gets angry. He especially gets angry when he's in line at the airport and people ask him, you don't get angry anymore, do you? Oh, so much fun. So what are your thoughts, questions, or reflections on today's talk about forgiveness? What do you think? Alejandro. Whenever that smile goes on his face, I know he's got something very intriguing to say.
When you were just saying how somebody will say, I can't get, like, why doesn't my mind keep going? Why doesn't it stop? So that brings up the fact that they unconsciously know that it can't. So I find that interesting when you said that. So that they say, my mind won't stop. So there's an unconscious aspect of knowing that it can't come to sense. That just came up. That sounds really interesting. So people know it's just they need to experience it.
Yeah.
That mind can't be stopped.
And the ability to experience it directly depends upon what they're holding on to and how tightly they're holding. And so if they're holding on to this idea that they're always in their mind and that their mind is this superpower that is constantly thinking, driving them crazy, they have no power over their mind at all, then they're not going to have power over their mind, at least not initially, not until they learn how, you know. Another person feels that, you know, that the mind is not a big deal, that the mind thinks and the thoughts are like clouds in the sky that are moving through, and that you can't keep any one of them, just like you can't keep any one thought in your mind for any more than it's willing to be there, you know. You can recall things, but are you pulling it forward on purpose, or is it just there because it's something that you're attached to? I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thought. But, you know, that person who accepts the thoughts of the mind as just things that are moving through, you know, most of the time, they're going to be more at ease with what you share with them about concentration and meditation. They won't be so afraid. Because to the first person, it's kind of like, oh, great, another chance to fail. You know, the second person is, oh, this is interesting, let's see what happens. So you've got the fearful one, you've got the curious one, and then you've got the person who really understands that it's about recognizing the thoughts that aren't necessary, just like recognizing the tension in the body that's not necessary, and letting that go to some degree and replacing it with something else. And this is where mantra comes in so handy. It is just such a beautiful, sacred tool for restructuring your thinking patterns. Because when you're chanting Hari Om, Hari Krishna, Jai Ma, whatever, you know, Sahana Vavatu, whatever it is that you're chanting it potentially repetitiously. If you just do it one time, it's not going to do anything really. But if you chant it over and over and over again, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, 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 the more that you chant it, the less your mind is occupying itself with other things. And now this is becoming a powerful force, powerful energy within the mind that is filling the mind with something other than, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, everybody hates me, I hate myself. And instead, your mind will eventually start replaying, without you even trying, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And you'll find yourself singing it at the supermarket while you're driving your car, or in the shower, and maybe even when you're having an argument with somebody. They'll be saying something and suddenly they'll be like, why am I thinking Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram? Because that's the divine essence which is contained within the mantra, coming to you and reminding you, you at your essence are peace. You at your essence are love. You at your essence are Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram. You are not, I hate you. I hate you is something you say to yourself, but it is not who you are. I hate you is something you say to another person, but it is not who you are, and it is also not who they are. And so the mantra have this practical power, but they also have a very mystical power to them. And if you abide by the idea that everything is God approaching you. So how many of you recognize and are attracted to the idea that everything is God consciousness in this world? The flow of nature, the flow of consciousness, the life itself, death itself, it's all a flow of consciousness. So if everything is a flow of consciousness and that person that you're arguing with is also a flow of consciousness, the same consciousness. And if we can begin to look at people like that, to see people as God approaching us, then so many of our arguments will already be resolved. We won't have to have them. Because we'll just recognize that the human mind is going to have differences. We don't need to argue about them necessarily, unless there's harm involved. Then we need to discuss it. But we can discuss it. We don't have to fight about it. We don't have to tear each other down. We don't have to compete for the scepter. We can sit down and we can use tools like metta meditation, service, to humanity. We can use tools like collaboration and creativity to come up with solutions to differences. Sometimes those differences seem insurmountable, and I totally get that. And it seems to be very true. Because what do you do when someone is acting out of greed? That's hard. But the greed isn't coming from just greed. The person is not just a greedy person. The person is greedy for a reason. What's the reason they're greedy? And maybe that's what needs to be addressed in our society. Is what causes greed? What is the root cause of hate? What is the root cause of racism? What is the root cause of inequality? And maybe it's the root cause that needs to be addressed. And if we go back and address the root cause, then what we're actually saying is we need to begin to invest heavily in our children being raised as people who know their wholeness, not people who think they're fractured. Yeah. I was in the car with a mom and her child the other day. And the child was a little bit upset because he wanted to ride with his grandmother. But his car seat was in the car. So the child was upset. And the mom and the other grandma said, no, you can't do that right now. We all have to be in this car and she'll meet us there. And then the child asked for something else and the mom said no. And then the child asked for something else and the other grandmother that was in the car with us said no. And then where we were going, there was a playground, and the child said, I really want to go to the playground. And at first the mom said no, and then she said, you know what, you've heard no enough for this hour. Yes, let's go to the playground. Let's do that. Because you can't just hear no. You can't just hear you're not good enough. As a matter of fact, they shouldn't hear that ever. But you know what I'm saying. We need to temper ourselves so that we are cultivating children into adults who understand their wholeness, not their fracturedness. What did you want to say, Allison?
I wanted to go back to what you were talking about with the mantras. So in regards to forgiveness and the mantras, when you're looking at self-forgiveness, but you're not quite sure. Like, I'll just speak personally. Like, I feel like I have this underlying sadness, but I'm not really sure of the source of it. So I don't know if it's, like, I've looked at that and I've looked at that, but I know there's something I need to forgive, and I'm not sure the source. I'm not really sure. Like, so I'm wondering if, like, the mantra, and I do mantras, but maybe approaching it from the standpoint of forgiveness. Like, there's something, I don't know if you've ever come across
absolutely
anything like that. Like, people who can't identify what is it that's making me repeat these patterns that aren't good for myself. And
most people
yeah.
can't identify.
Really?
They'll go to something.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, it was when I did this or when I did that, but that's not the root of it. So most people will say something like, I just feel anguish and I don't know where it's coming from. I feel lost and I don't know why. I should be happy. I have everything in life. I don't know why I'm not happy. So many people cannot identify where it comes from. And it might not be necessary. Okay. Right? What's more necessary than identifying where it comes from is where you want to take it to. Okay. So Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra of compassion. Is a beautiful mantra. Another very beautiful mantra, Maham Rechin Jaya, right? So the Shiva mantra, because the Maham Rechin Jaya is the great death-defying mantra, and the last line in there states, as the cucumber is freed from the vine, allow me also to never turn my back on liberation. So what we're asking for in that mantra, what we're inquiring about is, how do I release myself from what I'm holding on to? Fill me with the wisdom to become liberated from this sadness, from this grief, from whatever it happens to be for a person. So the Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a Buddhist mantra, or the Maham Rechin Jaya, which you have. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyam Amritat. Yeah. So one of those two. The other thing that you can do is you can find a Tara mantra. Yeah, Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha is a Tara mantra. And Tara is the goddess of compassion. When we're feeling empty or sad inside, compassion, maybe there's not enough compassion. Maybe that's the inner child calling out and saying, I need you to love me. I need you to unconditionally love me. You know, and so the Tara mantra is about unconditional love and compassion. Yeah. So play with those, see which one feels right for you.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just journal. Just I find sometimes when I'm kind of in this quandary where I can't figure out what's going on, I just kind of free write. Like, I don't sit down and say, okay, what am I going to write about? I just say one word, and I go. And I don't even know where it brings me. But it brings me to some really interesting places that I didn't think about. Yeah, start with one word. And don't worry about what the word is. The word could be the. The word could be star. The word could be crazy. The word could be anger. The word can be whatever word you want, but then just free flow write after that without thinking about what you're writing. And sometimes that will uncover things as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any thoughts or reflections? Yes, Rich?
Just one thing for Allison. I brought some books in, and I know I brought one in on mantras that you might have an interest in. I have more at home that I haven't found and gotten through that I plan to bring in. So,
Thank you.
just so you know.
Okay.
And an old friend sends their greetings to you, Tina Whalen.
Oh.
So she's why I came here.
Oh, nice.
So,
Thank you.
cool.
Anything today, Cal?
What's that?
Anything today?
You often say that all beings suffer, and I'm good with that one.
Mm-hmm.
But then you I personally can see the second part of that being true is if being liberated when the physical body dies. Because I'm pretty sure there's people that whether they're psychopaths, whether they're just living a life in addiction until the very bitter end, and that addiction takes their life. Maybe at the last minute, during their last breath, they might experience some type of peace. But outside of that person hasn't really experienced healing in this lifetime.
Depends on how you define healing. And so I'm not necessarily talking about healing in the quantum level. I'm talking about little healings along the way, as well as the greater healing of self, body, mind, spirit, into a person who understands their wholeness. Do you think a psychopath has never experienced a moment of peace?
Sure.
Of course they have.
Sure.
There was healing in that moment of peace. For some level of them, it could be a very deep, deep, deep molecular level that they're not even aware of, you know. Do you think that a murderer has never looked at a flower and appreciated its beauty? Of course they have.
Awesome, sure.
And appreciation is a form of healing. Yeah?
Right. Normally when you say about all beings have experienced suffering and all beings will experience healing,
Yeah.
I was taking that more at
Well, they will.
the bigger scale.
Yeah. So for the smaller little kind of micro facets of healing, there's not a person alive who has not experienced gratitude, who has not experienced love, you know, who has not experienced, and it may only be a small amount, but it's still been there, and it's there as a reminder, maybe, of a greater wholeness. So little healings along the way. And when I say we will all experience healing, I'm speaking from the yoga perspective that, as the Buddha said, and as Krishna said, and as many have said, paraphrasing slightly, there's many ways to get to the top of the mountain, but every one of us is going there. Every one of us is going there, whether we know it or not. And so in this life, the ultimate purpose of life is healing. That's the ultimate purpose. And in the yoga teachings, we will all heal. There will come a time where every person is healed. And that may sound out there.
Further, because I'm not. How can number one? How's that proven? Number one, and number two, again.
Can you prove faith? I don't think you can prove faith. I think that.
So some of the stuff that is just left to, yeah. But see, you're saying in the yoga tradition, everyone will experience healing. That sounds very.
So if you acknowledge, if you adhere to the idea of reincarnation,
which I don't.
Okay, but if you did,
okay, yeah.
So you're of the perspective that when we die in this life, that's it.
No. I believe our spirit goes on, but I don't believe that we're.
That's reincarnation.
Again. What's that?
That your spirit goes on is reincarnation.
Okay.
Yeah, there's many perspectives, but that your spirit continues is reincarnation.
Okay.
So now, in the yoga tradition, you can be reincarnated in many ways. It depends on what scripture you're reading.
Right.
You can be reincarnated as a person.
Right. See, that's what
You can be reincarnated as a deer. There's actually a beautiful story about a monk who was reincarnated as a deer. You can be reincarnated as a saint. You can be reincarnated. You can go home to God for a little while and stay there and then come back at a future point. But when we talk about the necessity of resolving karma, all beings will come back to a form until karma is resolved. And we may not resolve on the same day, like everyone in this room will not resolve on, August 5th of 2019 all at the same time. But some will resolve in one point in time and some will resolve at others. So there's a beautiful story. Maybe this will help. There's a gentleman who's a Shiva devotee, and he's off to visit Shiva. And he comes across a group of priests. And the priests say, "Oh, you're going to visit Shiva. Would you do me a favor and ask him how many more lifetimes I need to come back and do this before I have Mahasamadhi, or moksha, liberation, complete liberation?" And so, the gentleman said, "Certainly, I'll ask him while I'm up there, And then he comes across a group of temple goers, patrons of the temple, and they're like, "Oh, where are you off to?" And he says, "I'm going to go visit Shiva." And they say, "Oh, would you ask Shiva how many more lifetimes we have to come back here and do this? We're really curious." And he says, "Yes, certainly." He comes across a beggar on the street. And the beggar on the street says to him, "Good man, are you off to visit Shiva?" He says, "Yes." He goes, "Would you kindly ask him how many more lifetimes I will have to come back here before I experience moksha?" So the man says, "Yes, sure, I'll ask him." He goes up, he has a very nice visit with Shiva. He asks him about the priest and he asks him about the temple goers. But he doesn't ask him about the beggar. And the reason he didn't ask him about the beggar was because he was hoping to avoid him on the way back, because he didn't want to give him bad news. He felt that there would be no possible way that what he was going to say to him would be any kind of good news. Like, he's thinking millions of lifetimes, As he's walking back, first he comes across the temple people, the temple goers, and he says to them, "Well, Shiva said that you've all got to come back like 72 more lives, at least." And so they're all very disappointed. And they're like, "Well, we go to temple on every holiday, and we know the prayers, and we make the offerings. We know the rituals. 72 more lives? Oh my gosh." And they become so disheartened. And they kind of follow him for a little while, because they know he's going to the priest, and they want to hear what he's got to say. And so the priest says, "What did Shiva say?" Shiva said, "You've got to come back for at least 12 more lives." The priest got pissed. "What do you mean 12 more lives? I take care of the temple. I do all of this. I teach these people. I pray every day. I do the rituals every day. What do you mean I have to come back? Shiva's got to be out of his mind right now. This is crazy. Crazy, I tell you." So he's pissed. So he's walking, and the people are like still bickering as they're following him, and they're like, saying, "What's the matter with Shiva? Doesn't he know what kind of good people we are?" The homeless person sees him, the beggar, from a ways away, and comes running over and says, Oh, dear sir, did you have a chance to ask Shiva when I might experience moksha?" And the man said, "Well, this is what he said." He said, "You see that tree right there? For as many leaves are on that tree, that's how many more lifetimes you'll need to incarnate." And the man started to dance and laugh and sing. "Are you serious? Really? That's all I have to do? And I can be liberated? I can be free? I can be healed just after that?" Shiva came right to this man and awakened him, gave him moksha on the spot. The priest got even angrier and said, "How dare you insult us, giving a simple beggar moksha, when look at what we've done?" And Shiva said, "Here you are so full of your ego that 12 more lives to you seems like a hell. And these people over here lose their hope, lose their faith, because they might have to come back 72 more times. This man was told he had to come back thousands and thousands more times. And he's dancing with joy at the utter idea that he could even be healed." So for each of us, it's different, Cal. For each of us, it's different. Our paths are different. Some people will need to incarnate many times. Some people will incarnate, and then they'll come back too, though. They'll come back in a mode of awakened in the world. And we see this in people like maybe the Dalai Lama, maybe Amma, maybe the great saints and sages that have lived throughout time. They'll come back as guides. They'll come back as individuals who support the rest of us in some way or another. Is that a little bit? Yeah, no, okay.
No, because
healing is
what's that?
Healing is a process.
Right, but if one doesn't such as myself, I believe that once we all leave this physical body, we're liberated.
Yeah.
That there's not the requirement of coming back, whether it be 5 times, 72 times, thousands of times. If that's my belief.
And that's your belief.
Right.
Stick with it, dude. I like that.
No, right. But what I'm saying is, if that's my belief, then I have trouble seeing how everyone will ultimately experience healing
If that's
in
your
this lifetime.
It's not in this lifetime. So the ultimate, okay, so because that's your belief,
Right.
you will not be able to see what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because that's your belief, you will not be able to see what I'm saying. That's like telling a person who can only see night that there's such a thing as day. It doesn't, or the person that only sees day that there's such a thing as night. Because that's your belief and you're sticking with it. Which is a beautiful belief. I hope it's true. I hope everybody is liberated at death in this lifetime and that they don't have to come back here anymore. But that's not what my heart tells me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the healings that happen in this life, in that instance, would be the little healings along the way that make death an easier process.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I do, if one includes, and there was a book, I can't think of what it was called, but it was written by a woman whose son was killed or passed away when he was very young, and she feels that she still has this connection with him, a very strong connection, and it starts out at the very beginning, even before the first chapter, it says something about there's a, not cure, but there's a, she didn't use the word healing, but there's a, blank to any problem, as long as you include death as the solution. So I do believe that healing, then everybody will be healed if you include leaving the physical body and being liberated.
Sure. And death is definitely always part of the solution, but not always the physical death, right? The death of an attitude, the death of a belief, the death of the moment, of the second, everything. There's a bunch of little deaths all through life. So sometimes, and we've talked about this before, I believe, reincarnation can also be seen as continuing to rebirth the same issue over and over again in life until you learn. Some people will say, why does this always happen to me? What are you not paying attention to? What are you not seeing? What are you not changing in your response or reaction to a situation that's constantly bringing about the same result? So it'll be reborn again. So some people look at reincarnation as the process of continual experience in this life, similar, until you learn and release it. So there's lots of different ways to look at this, many more that can fit in the next 2 minutes. But yeah. But I like your idea. Everybody at the end of this life, we're done, we're free. Cool, it's like recess, man. Yes, Rich.
Have you ever wondered why people sometimes say history repeats itself?
Yeah.
Can you take that further on that?
Yeah, well, just on what you were speaking on reincarnation and healing, I don't know if that's where I approach it from, because I think of our time here in this space, everybody, it's a matter of teaching the spirit. Each spirit is provided with lessons throughout an entire life, not in the same order, and not everybody learns the lessons. And if you don't learn particular lessons, the spirit's not strong enough to advance to whatever next realm there is, however you describe it. You get sent back to relearn those lessons, not in the same form, but the spirit in another vessel.
That might be your understanding, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, it's not even an understanding. It's something I question the same way as you. And I never heard it in terms of healing, but
Yeah. And I think that, again, Kel, I know that your belief in that is very strong. So what I'm saying doesn't jive with that. And that's fine, It doesn't have to.
Right.
The whole point of the conversation is not to find the truth about this. Is there reincarnation? Is there not reincarnation? It's not something that can be proven. No, it's not. So, yeah, I know. There's some special circumstances in the world, but like the child who was born and knew everything about another part of the world at the age of 5. But it's more about asking yourself what healing entails. And healing can be found in every moment. When the soul is strong enough to master death and move into the next realm, that's a healing. If the soul is not healed or the spirit is not healed, then it's not able to, in which case it comes back. So the process of resolution of these circumstances, of these experiences, the process of moving through this life and taking that last breath peacefully, there's little healings that happen along the way, and then there's grand healing. And they're different but the same. Yeah.
Even just choosing to look at something in a different way can heal you from
Completely.
something that you find unexpected.
Absolutely.
You didn't expect to be able to heal from. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Well, then you do start thinking of it that way, and it heals you in a sense.
In a sense. Mm-hmm. And that might get covered back up again by what we call samskaras, which are other habitual behaviors. So, you see the butterfly and you're brought to your knees because of its amazing beauty. And then you go back to, I have to go to work tomorrow. But in that moment where you saw with great appreciation the butterfly, there was a small healing that happened. An appreciation happened. Now, the question for the spiritualist is, can you take that appreciation and instead of saying, I have to go back to work on Monday, can you say, I get to? Can you shift your perspective so that there's more appreciation, more moments of healing through appreciation and gratitude, and less moments of constricting, like that constricted washcloth, through doubt, fear, anger, resentment, resistance, that type of thing. It's a really beautiful topic. And I thank everybody who contributed. Did you want to say something?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Just sharing an experience from when I attended the retreat and we did the practice, and we're good at retaining what that we did at the beginning today, and the forgiveness. When it came to that final person, I could not do it, and today when we did it again, I thought, okay, I'll try this person again, and I was able to do it. And I think, if we had done it at the end of the session, I could say, well, because everything you taught about forgiveness today, I feel was very empowering, but something during the retreat must have clicked with me, because and I expected it to be difficult again. I thought, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to do it and have to substitute him. So it's just an empowering feeling to be able to forgive and separate the person and not own that pain or harm that they.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm not the one who did it, though. You're the one who did it. Yeah. And, it's different for everybody. For some people, some things click right away, some things click later. For other people, some things click right away, other things click later. It's just a matter of moving through all the layers to get to the point where there's enough freedom that you feel empowered to do so. And that's the work that you do. That's the work that each one of you do, is maneuvering through the layers so that you find enough freedom to be able to embrace the possibility, the potential. So let's sit up nice and tall. Close the eyes. Take a nice breath in, a nice breath out. Have a sense of grounding, a sense of upliftedness, a sense of presence, and also a sense of dissolution. In that, what's being dissolved is who you think you are, and what's being found is who you really are. A greater potential of yourself. Not pushing anything away, not denying anything, just to cease the limiting so that you can see a bigger picture, embrace a greater reality. Drawing the hands together in front of the heart. Together we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a nice breath in. Bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all things, acknowledging all people, all paths, all beliefs, having a space large enough inside of your heart to send them all love. May we all know healing in this life. May we all know healing in this life. Namaste. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming this morning to the circle. Beautiful conversation as always. Yeah.